Let's talk about effect size. We're going to overview effect size for factorial ANOVA, and we're going to look at the formulas for eta squared. So we have three different hypotheses as we've been talking about. We have three different F scores, so that means we have three different effect sizes or eta squared equations. We have one for factor A, one for factor B, and one for that interaction. So here are the formulas for effect size. Basically what we're doing is we're taking the sums of squares for the factor, for example, factor A, and dividing it by the sums of squares for factor A plus the sums of squares within treatment. So you can see that all of the different formulas follow the same sort of structure. The sums of squares for the particular factor divided by the sums of squares for that factor plus the within treatment. And the percentage of variance accounted for is the same as we've talked about before: 0.01 small effect, 0.13 medium, 0.25 large effect. So we're going to calculate eta squared for that task difficulty and fatigue scenario that we talked about. So here's the first one for factor A. The factor A sums of squares were 120. Now this might be a little bit confusing because the within treatment sums of squares was also 120, but we can deal with that. So for this eta squared, we have 120 divided by 120 plus 120, which gave us an eta square of 0.50. That reflects a large effect of variation in the errors that can be explained by task difficulty. For factor B, we had 80 sums of squares, and we take that 80 sums of squares in the numerator and divide it by 80 plus the within sums of squares of 120 to give us a eta squared of 0.40. So this also reflects a large effect of the variation in errors that can be explained by fatigue. So finally, we have the interaction, and the sums of squares for the interaction was 60. So eta squared is 60 divided by 60 plus the within sums of squares of 120. That gave us an eta squared of 0.33, and this also is a large effect of variation in errors that can be explained by the interaction of task difficulty and fatigue. All right, that's it for the effect size. We have one more video where I'm going to speak with you about the advantages and the disadvantages of factorial designs.